About 5 months into World War I, German and Allied soldiers up and down the Western Front declared unofficial truces. These truces were later collectively dubbed the Christmas Truce of 1914. Okay, so, for starters, life in the trenches really was.
Voted most likely to suck eggs in high school.
There was, of course, the constant spray of gunfire. Not to mention...
Speaking of mention, the trenches are up for nomination in this year's Who's Got Worse Awards, and here's why.
That's right, Jake. Life in the trench really was one of the worst lives imaginable. And I've seen a lot of sci-fi. Those soldiers were constantly firing and being fired at. Not to mention the weather. Why, they had rain, freezing temperatures, snow, and lots of flooding in those open trenches. They had almost no shelter from these elements. The luckiest soldiers had a bit of a hole hollowed out in the side of the trench to keep them safe and warm and dry, or not so much. As you can imagine, that led to many soldiers getting frostbite, pneumonia, and possibly the most dreaded of all, trench foot.
This is interesting. And the other nominees are your grandparents who had to walk 9 miles uphill both ways in the snow just to get an education. Who will win this year's Worsey? Stay tuned.
Rats for sup tonight. Alright, so aside from the obviously terrible conditions in the trenches, the truces also happened because the soldiers were really close to each other. In some areas, no man's land was barely 30 yards wide, and even where it was wider, forces were still only separated by a no man's land littered with fallen comrades. Heck, the Christmas truces were taken individually, far from the first time, although they would be the last. Because it was considered good manners to have a short armistice every now and then to fix up the living quarters and gather the dead. So anyway, all those soldiers were very aware of the suffering of the enemy. Thusly, they developed this live and let live mentality.
And if you don't know what that is, here's an example.
Let it go! Let it go!
The moment we've all been waiting for. It is time to reveal the winner for this year's Worsey.
Oh, thank you.
Ooh. Okay. If this person has neater handwriting, this be easier. This year's Worsey goes to... Whoa. This is unexpected. The winner for this year is the Trenches. Congratulations, Trenches. You win an award.
Smashed everything that I possessed and held dear. It's deadly.
It's really hard to say this, and this may come as a surprise to some of you, but the Christmas truce happened on Christmas, and that was for a reason. It wasn't just like randomly on Christmas that everyone set down their arms. And, you know, the reason obviously was primarily that, oh gosh, I can't believe I have to be the one to tell you this, but the main reason was that it was Christmas. On the 7th of December, Pope Benedict XV suggested, in all his holy glory, that the two armies have a ceasefire on the occasion of Christmas. Of course, no country wants to be the first weenie to truce. So they were all like,
No, 9, whatever.
So anyway, instead of getting a vacation day, the boys, prized album right here, the boys received gift baskets. Well, boxes. Packages? Anyway, the British got stuff like writing sets and tobacco and various snacks like plum pudding. But they also got these really neat little cards from the royal family, so that was good stuff. And the Germans got stuff like the similar writing sets and more tobacco, go cancer, and snacks, but they also got paper lanterns and festive little wreaths and these cutesy little tabletop trees, and these pleasantries were meant to boost morale. But, they also paved the way to almost treason. Whoops. 'Twas the night before Christmas when it all began at precisely 11:19. That's when an angel descended, and its voice rang up and down the trenches, accompanied in some places by the ghosts of Jacob Marley and Christmases past, present, and future. No, unofficial truces. They all started individually and at different times. Stupid Americans. In some places, the truces really did begin on Christmas Eve. Some of those were super casual.
Gute Macht, durch der Engel hat, tönt es laut vom fern und nah. Christ der Retter ist da. Christ der Retter ist da. Kommen Sie da runter!
Common Christmas tunes were sung across the trenches. They were usually started by the Germans, and the other side would join in when they recognized the tune.
Adeste fideles, leti triumphantes, venite, venite in
Silent Night was a popular one. Or, if you speak German, Stille Nacht. If you know how to say that stuff, that is. Sometimes the truces were a little more certain. There was one instance where the Germans sent over a chocolate cake in order to encourage the British to truce with them. And the British did agree to truce so that the Germans could have a nice little concert in their trench. And they sent back tobacco. You see this guy? This guy right here? This stupid head. This is Rodney Barker. Rodney Barker saw a similar incident to what I'm gonna call the chocolate cake truce as a sign of lasting peace. This guy! And look at this guy over here throwing shade, because he knows Rodney Barker does not understand how war happens. Of course, some of the truces didn't even happen, or at least weren't confirmed, until Christmas morning. On Christmas, Germans and Allies alike stuck up signs saying things like, "A Merry Christmas," and "You no shoot, we no shoot." Another common method of trucing was, to say the least, insane. Germans would crawl up out of their trench one at a time and just book it across no man's land towards the enemy. And they're just running, right? They got their hands in the air, they're waving their arms, and they're yelling. They're yelling Merry Christmas. And it's not like Guten Christmas or whatever people say when they want to wish Germans a Merry Christmas. They're actually saying Merry Christmas because they speak the enemy's language just enough to speak. The Allies were, perhaps reasonably, suspicious at first, but eventually they joined the Germans in no man's land. So recall Private Leslie Barkington, who is obviously British. I mean, Barkington.
So then we began to pop our heads over the side and jump down quickly in case they shot, but they didn't shoot. And then we saw a German standing up waving his arms and we didn't shoot.
And so it begins. During the day, gunfire was replaced by festivities and safety. Of course, that was after the officers tried to stop the soldiers. Most didn't heed.
Anarchy!
Although, they did keep everyone out of enemy trenches. Gifts were exchanged. Absolutely lovely stuff like beer, bully beef, mementos, tobacco, buttons and hats, and plum pudding and yumminess. Corpses were recovered and buried, trenches repaired, and soldiers met in the middle to play soccer and give each other haircuts. Photographs were taken, and on one occasion there was also a reported pig roast. If you think that sounds weird, you're not alone. Okay, so admittedly, not everyone got a Christmas truce. Really, this stuff is borderline treason. All those truceteers are like one breath away from Siberia or something. So yeah, fear of punishment was a big holdup. According to Major John Hawksley, at least one British regiment refused to take part in the Christmas truce. At least they gave a warning, unlike in at least 2 other cases in which attempts to truce led to instant death. Or a slow one. Hopefully an instant death. According to one soldier's account, a British officer went so far as to inquire about the armistice before shooting a German soldier. Afterwards, he was probably just like,
Well, that's that then. There's your armistice.
those officers were like,
Smash!
it's really not gonna get them the moral high ground or anything, but officers were worried the truces would undermine the quote-unquote fighting spirit. Which of these was the corporal of the 16th Bavarians who said, "Such a thing should not happen in wartime. Have you no German sense of honor?" Was it A. Hans Müller, B. Adolf Hitler, C. Friedrich Becker, or D. Karl Richter? Did you say Friedrich Becker?
Nein, it was me, Hitler.
In the end, 1/3 of troops, 50,000, didn't participate. In some areas, the Christmas truces ended Christmas Day, but in some, they went on for the next 2 days or 3 days. Some even extended into the new year. Adversely, the truce led to much harsher conditions. In the fight to keep such a thing from happening again, pacifists were punished with a trial by court-martial. Furthermore, demonization of the enemy was further encouraged. This truce, just 5 months into the war, was one of the last great displays of chivalry. Such a truce never happened again.
Wink. Just wink. Wink. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh, really? I forgot to start counting.
Gather up some dead people. Instead of getting a vacation.
No! And this baby. Oh, this baby gives me dreams like I've never dreamed before.
Specifically, the... Was it German chocolate? But it's not like when your cat tells you Merry Christmas and she could be saying something really not nice. At least they warned the Germans they'd shoot first. Not really helping. Barkington.
He gave you women parts. He gave you a USB port. Kill all the Jews. Well, that's that then. Yes, yeah, my lady. Was my armistice?
No!
Bloody hell! Well, that's not then. Where's the armistice? Well.
Didn't participate.
Jobs president that God ever created.